On the night of March 27th, streets and stores in Shanghai's Pudong district were crowded with people. Store shelves soon became empty and people left with loads of supplies. What led to the mad rush? It's the latest announcement from the government. On the evening of March 27th, it announced a two-phase city lockdown on its social media accounts. The lockdown would be based on the Huangpu River that runs through the city. The Pudong district will be under a 4-day closure between March 28th and April 1st, with mass nucleic acid testing. Pudong New District is a district set up by the Chinese government at the national level. It's one of the most economically and industrially developed areas in mainland China. This was the scene in Pudong on March 28th, and now it is empty and quiet. Residents of Pudong are either locked up in their own homes or have been moved in groups to quarantine sites. The other half of the city was Puxi District, which will be locked down for 4 days, from April 1st to April 5th. After the government's announcement, a large number of people had to stand in long lines overnight to snatch up supplies, to the point that they no longer cared whether such close contact would lead to infections.
Yonghui Supermarket. Look, everything's empty. They're all snatched up. Look at the freezers. Empty. See? Wow. The food is all sold out. It's all empty.
电视里讲我们4月1号要封呀，要封嘛，我今天出来买点菜，你看我跑上去一点菜都没有了，叫我们这个几天怎么过啊？
During the prolonged policy of COVID-0, Chinese people are often denied timely and adequate supplies of essentials and medical care. Thus, the mention of lockdown will send people into a collective panic and distrust of the government. Residents mock the city's strategy as Shanghai-style lockdown, like the Mandarin duck hot pot. The Mandarin duck hot pot is divided in halves, like Shanghai is divided into Pudong and Puxi districts. In the past, one used a ferry to travel from Pudong to Puxi. Now it's called a stowaway if one tries to go from Pudong to Puxi. At present, if one comes to Shanghai from a nearby city, Suzhou, for example, it is even a more serious case of stowaways, and the police will immediately intercept and arrest the stowaways. Stowaways.
Stowaway? From where?
Suzhou.
You're kidding me.
He paddled his way here. Do you think it's hard to get here? With the Omicron variant, Shanghai has now become the new center of the worst COVID-19 outbreak in China in 2 years. According to the National Health Commission on March 28th, Shanghai has 3,500 new infections, 1,420 of which are in Pudong New District. The Shanghai private sector reported at least 8,000 asymptomatic infections in Pudong. No one seems to really know the exact situation in Shanghai. Several communities have been sealed off in the Minhang area. A resident encountered a party secretary from the neighborhood's residential committee. He tried to ask the official about the situation in the neighborhood. May I ask a question? What is the situation today? There are rumors of a confirmed case in the neighborhood, but there is no official notification. So what's happening? Or maybe this: don't run, secretary, don't run. The secretary ran away when being asked a question. Don't touch me, I'm asking questions. Find someone to answer. You get someone to answer our questions. Now the whole thing is live. You find someone to answer our questions. You come over and help me film what problems he has. I asked you a question. Why should I answer you? You are the secretary of the residential committee of our neighborhood. This is the Shanghai Expo Park. It has been converted into a quarantine camp. It can accommodate at least 5,000 people. People with asymptomatic infections are taken there and start to live in closed management. Thousands of people have been sleeping in groups, getting up and washing in groups, waiting in long lines for food. Some informants said that things are difficult inside the Expo Park. Even meals are hard, sitting together with countless people who tested positive. Whether one can live or not totally depends on one's immunity. Buses keep bringing more people in for quarantine. People without beds are sitting in rows and waiting. While most cities have used a blanket approach in lockdowns, Shanghai is unique in that it has implemented a strategy of locking down a city in 2 separate phases and limiting it to 4 days for each phase. According to an official statement, essential staff and service providers such as medical personnel, police officers, and delivery personnel can still travel normally with their work permits. However, most non-locals with ordinary jobs in Shanghai are in a financial hole. This is a migrant worker telling a story. Now the outbreak is particularly serious here. We have to stay where we are and aren't allowed to go back to our hometown. Now everywhere you go, you need a 48-hour nucleic acid test. You can't go anywhere. I have no work to do. I can only wander outside the halls of the construction site. It is expensive here and I can't find a job. I am looking for a job, but people won't interview me. Who has a way to let me go back to my hometown? Alas, it is too difficult for me now. I'm not struck down by the virus, but I'm going to be driven crazy by life. Shanghai's particular approach to lockdowns may be related to the city's size. As a major financial and trade center, Shanghai contributes 3.8% to China's GDP. That is to say, Shanghai is not only a city for Shanghai residents, but it also carries an important function in the economic and social development of the entire nation. It even has an impact on the global economy. The Pudong district on the east side of Shanghai not only has a high concentration of multinational financial companies, but is also home to Shanghai's main international airports and the Disney Resort. The Shanghai Disney Resort has been closed and will have to wait for notice when it will be open. Due to the epidemic, U.S. electric car giant Tesla's factory in Shanghai will be closing for 4 days, starting from March 28th. A container shipping company said on March 28th that some warehouses in Shanghai for port use have been closed and trucks traveling to and from the terminals have been severely affected. If Shanghai is shut down for an extended period of time, there will be many international cargo ships floating in the East China Sea. It will affect not only the Chinese economy, but the global economy as well. According to Bloomberg, a China economist estimates that the impact of these current measures in Shanghai could reduce China's economic growth by as much as 0.4 percentage points in the first and second quarters compared to a year ago. In this video, we see hundreds of Chinese students stranded at Zurich Airport in Switzerland. In the morning hours of March 28th, their flight to China was canceled 20 minutes before boarding because of the lockdown. On the other hand, many countries have implemented strategies to coexist with the virus. The CCP's insistence on a zero-COVID policy and how long that policy will last has raised more questions worldwide. Jilin City and Changchun City, where outbreaks are equally serious at the moment, have been under lockdown for nearly 20 days, yet with everything grounded in the cities, the virus still hasn't been cleared. The public is curious as to how many people could be detected within 4 days after experiencing close contact during the mad rush to get supplies on the night of March 27th. How many people will become positive after 4 days? What exactly is the purpose of the city lockdown? Perhaps it is merely a cosmetic gesture to please the central government that insists on zero tolerance towards COVID-19. A senior fellow for global health at the Council on Foreign Relations in New York told CNN that Beijing is asking for less disruption to the economy and daily life, and yet it wants local implementation of a COVID-0 policy. These two requests are contradictory to each other and are impossible to achieve as a whole. On China's social media platform, Weibo, the question "why can't China relax COVID-19 restrictions like other countries?" was a trending topic on March 23rd with over 500 million views in one day. The lockdown of the city, in whatever form, demonstrates the poor management skills of all levels of government under the Chinese Communist Party. Shanghai, one of China's economic centers with a developed economy and abundant medical resources, has rendered a chaotic scene during this wave of the epidemic. Many neighborhoods have had shutdowns time and again, disrupting people's life. It is difficult for residents to buy food, especially when prices for everything are jacked up high during the lockdown. Some neighborhoods have been sealed over a long period of time, and residents have practically exhausted their food reserves at home. I am the person in charge of the residential committee in Longbai 6th Village. Please stay calm. I will brief you on the situation.
We have been locked up for 9 days. How can we stay calm? I'm telling you, we've been locked up for 9 days, right? We have no food and no drink. The first thing that should be solved in a blocked area is the survival of the residents. But we are left with no food. Other neighborhoods have food delivered. Why do you only appear now? And it is after we called the police.
The residents of this neighborhood also questioned why, when the official report said that there were only 2 positive cases, the entire neighborhood of over 1,000 residents were blocked within the residential area. In many areas, infected individuals are either left unattended at home or sent to quarantine sites where no one cares or tests them. Many quarantine sites fail to serve the purpose of quarantine. Some are makeshift tin houses of 10 square meters, housing a dozen positive patients, and some have hundreds of people sleeping on cardboard. Many people gathered together during the nucleic acid test, and some were diagnosed right after the test. Lockdown has led to the closure of hospitals and the strain on medical care, resulting in all types of patients not being able to receive timely medical attention. As has been publicly known, one nurse has died from asthma due to a lack of timely treatment. The medical staff in Shanghai is facing a high level of stress. This is the head nurse of a Shanghai hospital in tears, telling that they are forced to work continuously for 36 hours without sleep, and that's not the worst of it.
Everyone is already at a breakdown point. This kind of emotion is not just for a day or two. It has been building up for some time. I have a few questions. First, we found today all the doors and windows of the hospitals are sealed. It's sealed with wooden boards. We only know that it happened in the time of SARS. The workplace needs to be ventilated. Air needs to be ventilated. If you seal it all up, we breathe the same air as the patients do. We breathe too. In this situation, how can we bring down the concentration of the virus? We're also breathing. We have to breathe just the same as the patients. We feel very dangerous. You brought up all the doors and windows. It gives us a very depressing feeling to work in such a dark environment.
The CCP tries to boost the moods of workers using different methods. For example, in this case, a dancer in red was arranged when sending healthcare workers to the front line. The atmosphere of red and white has an inexplicable effect. Some daring young people escaped from the blocked area by climbing over the wall. Some residents who may have run out of food at home went to the community greenery to see if there were any spring wild vegetables to eat. As a result, residents in some of the long-blocked neighborhoods in Shanghai are asking the government to lift the restrictions. There are also some cordoned-off neighborhoods where residents, suffering from unknown causes, act strangely. For example, one went up on the building roof and threw money down. This scene was seen in Wuhan in 2020 when it was under lockdown.
What's going on? Someone started throwing out money. Wow, the money is falling on me. Oh, really? He's throwing out money.
The Canadian national media, CBC, cited an economist's analysis on March 28th that the Shanghai lockdown deepens supply chain risks and inflationary impacts, and it's not clear if it would be imposed on a broader scale. Another expert said the market is concerned about the Communist Party's harsh lockdown. It remains to be seen how long the Shanghai lockdown will last, but it serves as a reminder that supply chain disruptions could happen at any time. A team of economists said the risk of an outbreak in China and a communist lockdown on the global supply chain is greater than the war in Ukraine.